Hi friends, welcome back. I gave me an update what's going on in the markets today and how Trump policies are affecting that. So let's just jump right in, and I'll be further frank with you guys. I wish I had a bunch of jokes, but I don't because the stuff I'm seeing is just not that funny. These are the headlines, and I'll explain why I mean that. Trump's policies could mean fewer rate cuts, Fed rate cuts, that is, what that means for stocks. So basically, you're probably going to get fewer rate cuts next year. Why? Because Trump's policies are going to be inflationary, meaning that prices and inflation will go up. So here's an example, and I'll explain what I mean by that. Trump is talking about tariffs on, foreign goods. Now, I know a lot of Trump voters probably don't know what a tariff is, but the basic gist of it is that the U.S. government will tax foreign goods imported in by a U.S. company. Now, the way that Trump will sell it to you is say, oh, we're going to be, being tough on China and be tough on all the other countries, and they're going to make them pay. Now, I got to make this really clear. The tariff is a tax on a U.S. company. It is not a tax on China or a tax on other countries. It's a tax on a U.S. company. Now, when a U.S. company imports a good from a foreign country, right? If there's, say, for example, no tariffs, they buy it cheap, they sell it high to Americans. That's how they make money. If there's a tax slash a tariff, they buy it from another country, right? Then they pay a tax on that good, and then the company has to decide, okay, what do they want to do? One, do they want to eat the tax and essentially take less profits? And that'd be the first question. Do you think companies are going to do that? Do you think they're going to say, you know what? I'm going to take less profits and I'm going to give all my money to Trump? I don't think so, but that's one thing that could happen. Two, the company will raise prices to maintain their profit margins. I think that's probably the most highly likelihood, and that's why you would say inflationary. Or three, the U.S. company decides, you know what? I'm just going to import. I'm not going to import foreign goods anymore. I'm going to, figure out a way to buy goods from U.S. suppliers. Could that happen? Maybe. The chances are, though, that the cost is not going to come in as cheap as coming from another country. That's why we make a lot of stuff in other countries. The other issue is, too, we don't even have the capacity at this moment to make stuff in the USA. So Trump's plan is if you put a bunch of tariffs on U.S. companies that import foreign goods, then that'll encourage a bunch of foreign investors or whatever to build a bunch of factories in USA and bring the factories back to you. That's the plan. Good luck with that. The other thing is too that Trump is talking about. He's talking about more deportations, right? We're going to kick out all these illegal immigrants. Basically, what we're talking about is cheap labor. So if you kick out all of the cheap labor, what's going to happen to the cost of labor? And what's going to happen to the cost of goods? So, for example, it's very similar to the tariff situation. Again, you're putting taxes on foreign goods in the tariff situation, but again, the U.S. importer pays that. Now, with, say, kicking out all the cheap labor, then that means if you want to have food or put roofs over your head or have nannies or whatever you want to do, you're going to have to pay someone more. So chances are that's going to raise the prices for you. I'm just laying it out there, guys, and you can decide, if this is good or bad policy. That's up to you. He also wants to spend money on a wall, so we'll see how that goes. And I guess we're going to get rid of humanitarian programs. So if there's a disaster somewhere else, let them do whatever they're going to do. So I want to throw this up on screen because someone had a question about it. And the basic gist of it is, you may or may not know this, but undocumented workers or illegal immigrants, however you want to say it, actually pay taxes, and they even pay into Social Security. Now, someone asked, how do they do that? And the simple answer is they use fake Social Security numbers. So there's that. These are some numbers based on that. It looks like, I think this is by year. They said more than a third of tax dollars paid by undocumented workers go towards payroll taxes. And the numbers we have here, and it's hard to get the exact numbers, but this is saying 25 billion goes into Social Security, 6.4 billion goes into Medicare, and 1.8 billion into unemployment in 2022. So don't think that these kind of workers don't pay into the system. They actually do, and they don't actually get any benefits from it. So there's that. So we have to worry about that kind of thing.
And one other thing I'll be doing very early in the administration is closing up the Department of Education in Washington, D.C., and sending all education and education work and needs back to the states. We want them to run the education of our children.
The reason why I say this stuff is not funny, because Trump is now offering all these proposals to attack education in the USA. Now, for me, as you guys may or not know this, I was professor for about 10 years, and I value education. I do YouTube every day, and I just want you to be educated. I want you to learn things and keep track of what's going on in the world. And there's nothing that frustrates me more than just like saying, okay, we're going to defund education, we're going to, get rid of education, and we just want you all to be dumb. And that's essentially what we're talking about here. But it makes sense. I mean, and in the whole scheme of things, if you love Elon Musk and you love Donald Trump, and essentially they're the boss, they're the billionaires, and if you say yes, I want to give all my money to the billionaires, have them take care of me. I don't want any education for me or any education for my children, and I love divides between rich and poor, then absolutely fantastic, get rid of education. So in these kind of states, and this is sort of why I pulled this up, these are essentially Trump states. Judge blocks Louisiana from requiring schools to display 10 commandments. So basically, there's a large population out there in USA. I don't know what percentage, maybe 20%, maybe 30, who knows, that are like, you know what? I just really want more Bibles in schools. The judge actually blocked it, but I think there's a lot of pressure for that still, and we'll probably see that going forward. Moreover, you have this. Trump pledged to close the Department of Education. What would that mean? So Republicans have long talked about getting rid of the Department of Education, and essentially, if you don't know, the federal government actually assists with education in several states. You also may or may not know this, but this is just the reality. Some states have more money than others, and some states have better education and schools than others. This is something I want to stress over and over again, and I can't stress it enough. If you want to change your life, change your zip code. If you want to change your life, move to a better city, get your kids in better schools. I'll just state it again really clearly. If you want a better life for you and your family, move to a better city, get your kids in better schools. Now, this is just the unfortunate truth of it is that it's just we don't have an equal system. It's just how it is. It's how it is in several countries around the world. Some schools are better than others, and in my opinion, education is really important to not just unlocking a better career path for yourself, just navigating the world. I mean, guys, I do YouTube every single day. I get frustrated. To me, it's obvious there's multiple scams out there, but for whatever reason, we have a population that can't think critically and they can't see scams coming. So let me give you an example. To me, it's obvious. For those of you who don't pay attention to this stuff, you just get scammed. There's no way to put it. This was back in 2016. There were a lot of investigations. It was all over the news if you pay attention to this stuff. It says it was a facade, a total lie. New documents reveal how Trump University scam worked. So basically, it's so ridiculous. Trump is attacking universities, saying schools are out to scam you, and now I guess he's going after school endowments. He wants to take their money. I can't make this stuff up. Have a listen.
Nation under the guise of equity will not only have their endowments taxed, but through budget reconciliation, I will advance a measure to have them fined up to the entire amount of their endowment. A portion of the seized funds will then be used as restitution for victims of these illegal and unjust policies that hurt our country so badly. Colleges have gotten hundreds of billions of dollars from hardworking taxpayers, and now we are going to get this anti-American insanity out of our institutions once and for all.
And so what's ironic about this whole thing is like Trump's after, universities for, I guess, scamming the public, yet Trump himself literally ran a scam and called it Trump University. Students actually sued. They ended up getting 25 million settlement from this thing. But this is the world that we live in, right? We live in this like weird, bizarro world where people put their trust in those kind of people. And I can't control how people vote. I can't control how people think. All I can do is try my best to educate you. And again, in my opinion, well, it's not really an opinion, it's just a fact. Some schools are better than others. Some cities are better than others. I'll just tell you the truth about stuff. And what you want to be doing and thinking about it for yourself, and this is sort of why you want to save and invest well, is make sure you get your family to a better place to live. That's just reality of how the world is. And I know it's sad to say these kind of things, but it's just real, guys. I even write my whole book about it. This is sort of something I talk about all the time because every single day, and if you wonder why I'm smiling all the time, I know I'm fortunate. I really know, because I have lived in places that aren't very good. I know exactly how it is to have a crappy job. I know exactly how it is to have a boss that doesn't pay you well. The boss that doesn't treat you well, yells at you all the time. I know exactly how it is to be around a bunch of, quote, friends. I say quote friends because it depends how you want to think about friends, right? So I don't mean to be hating on other people, but some people out there are just not in good influences for you. If you're hanging out with a bunch of people that are saying, hey, you have to spend your money all the time, or you hang out with people that say, hey, we have to go gamble, go to the casinos, and go drink all the time. It's just not a good influence. It's just how it is. And I consider a friend is someone who's looking out for you in your best interest. Maybe that person is fun to be around to go gamble your money all the way, all the time, every weekend, but it's not necessarily good for a healthy lifestyle. So there's that. I know this particular video, I'm a little bit upset and angry today. It's just because of what stuff that I see, and I'm trying my best to tell you guys sort of like why this stuff is happening in the markets, why people are reacting the way that they are, and why you can't depend on anyone. It just you can't. The way our system is going right now, if Trump gets his way, we're talking about cutting all sorts of funding to all sorts of necessary things, and essentially you're going to be on your own. And for him and his rich buddies, they're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. Get the tax breaks. They don't need any hospitals or schools. They can do everything on their own, no problem. If they have any, really serious issue, they can fly to whatever city that they need to go and do that. They can put their kids in boarding school. They can do that. They don't care about preserving the system. They don't need Social Security, these kind of people. But the average person does. That's why we're talking about this. So here's an example. If you ask Americans, what do you care about, right? What do we not fund enough? What do we fund just okay? What do we fund too much? Number one on this chart here is education, right? You ask Americans, we don't put enough money in education. Number two is healthcare. Number three, Social Security. Number four is infrastructure. Number five, assistance to the poor. Number six, Medicare. And number seven, border security. Now, some people are going to say, no, Chris, you're so dumb. Border security could be our number one. And maybe if that's what you're concerned about, maybe. But do you also, discount education, healthcare, Social Security, et cetera? These are the kind of things that I think is reasonable to talk about. I know we talk about money all the time, but you got to bring this stuff up because if the government, for example, in Elon Musk's world, he wants to cut about a third of our budget. If you want to get rid of education, get rid of healthcare, get rid of Social Security, get rid of infrastructure, so forget your free roads, forget public transit, these kind of things. Just everyone get in a robotaxi so he can make money. Then you're gonna have a bunch of toll roads to be in the robotaxi. Like if you want to privatize everything and everything's for profit, that's the world you're going into. And guys, I've heard this stuff before, but unfortunately, we now have a majority of the country that's like, hey, that's the world that I want. And I was like, okay, great. But if that is indeed the world, you got to take care of yourself. This is sort of why managing money is going to be becoming even more important going into the future. So that's what people think. And this is sort of the direction that we're going. It also is very interesting. It divides up by party, depending on if you're, Republican leaning or Democrat leaning, what you think that we should spend money on. So, for example, Democrats tend to be more education, assistance to the poor, and healthcare. I'm just looking at the numbers here. Republicans overall, generally want less spending, but their issues, I'm looking at the chart, we're looking for red here. I guess Republicans want border security, law enforcement, and I guess you could argue the military. Infrastructure is kind of the same, but Democrats want more infrastructure, more Social Security. Yeah, so Republicans, it's law enforcement, so more police, more border security. I can see it right here in the numbers, and they definitely want to fund the military more than the Democrats. So I'll let you guys decide which is more important to you. Of course, scientific research is not going to be that important to Republicans. Screw that. Who needs research? Who needs science? Who needs education? Who needs any of these things? That's the Republican way. And so, you guys can understand my point of view on this. But guys, I actually don't disagree with the idea of managing our expenses. It doesn't mean you can spend money on everything. I completely agree with that, right? It also doesn't mean that you can do tax cuts to the moon. You have to balance stuff. Right now we're deficit spending, so you have to have a situation to where our system is sustainable. The main problem, and no one really addresses it clearly, mostly because and now that Trump and the Musks are in power, they're just going to say everything's all about those people, the dark people south of the border. They're the cause of your problems, guys. If you look at our budget here, just look at it. What's the biggest expense here in our budget? You can clearly see it's Social Security. It's not hard to see, right? If you can look at these charts again. Going in 2034, these are projections. This is coming from the Peterson Institute. They always look at the national debt and deficit spending. Again, it's Social Security. Number two is going to be Medicare, and then you're going to have essentially the national debt servicing that, right? The interest on that. So these are our major expenses. The basic gist of it, if you don't know, it's a demographic issue. We're just going to have a larger portion of the population is going to be greater than 65. That is the main thing. Now, what's interesting though is that depending on which country you're at, I'll give you an example of Japan, because Japan's a really interesting one because they really have a problem with too many old people, not enough young people. So they're actually having to bring in a lot more workers from other countries. Why? To take care of the elderly. And we actually have a very similar situation in USA. Many of these workers actually go into healthcare, personal assistants, however you want to call it, right? Your nannies, your maids, your gardeners, these kind of things, and it is what it is. But Trump wants to kick these people out, which, guys, no problem. If that's your plan and that's your goal, go for it. But you're gonna have to pay more for the Americans to take those jobs. And I don't know if Americans want to do those kind of jobs. Because right now, if you want a decent job in America that pays a pretty decent living, and I say decent, it's actually pretty good. I think you can get six figures in many cities. Is actually a nurse, but we can't get enough Americans to do it. We actually bring in so many people from around the world. And these are actually all legal too, that come in and be nurses. If you want to talk about the legal ones, those are going to be more like home assistants. I don't know what phrase you would use, nannies, stuff like that. And it crosses both sides of the aisle. And one of the things I've always said, for those Republicans out there who really want to kick out these people that take care of your kids and your family, make a pledge right now that you're only hiring Americans to take care of your loved ones. So there's that. Lastly, I want to show you guys this. Sometimes people ask me, Chris, what stuff do you like? I'll show you guys a couple things. For the average person, this is stuff that you're good putting your money in. These are actually balance funds, so this will already put the mix of stocks and bonds. You can let them deal with it, but this is I give you more than one because I just want you guys to have choices. I don't want to say, hey, you have to buy this particular one. There's a lot of choices out there for balance funds. Again, this will mix your stocks and bonds for you. If you just want to go stocks and index funds, the S&P 500, here's a whole bunch of choices, right? There's like 38 choices on this list. You pick the one that makes sense for you. And definitely read the description of these things. Look at the fees. I think all of these are going to be low fees, so you're going to be fine there. So again, just just pick the one that makes sense for you. I know I get frustrated and I sound a bit irritated with this one. It's just, to me, when I see this stuff, it's so obvious. But and guys, on this channel, I just tell you the truth. Trump won, and that's fine. The majority of people voted for that, and that is essentially how democracy works. And now, as we go through the markets, we say, okay, this is the world that we live in. We're looking at tariffs. We're looking at deportations. We're looking at higher inflation. We're looking at maybe getting rid of Department of Education, cutting a bunch of services to people. And so if this is the world that we live in, how do we adjust to that? And I'm just telling you guys, you're going to make sure you're going to want to save more money. Do not depend on Social Security. Now, are they going to cut it entirely? Probably not, but I have a feeling, though, that it won't be exactly what you think it's going to be, years from now. So that's why just don't count on it. If it's there, fantastic. If it's not there, you're still going to be okay. You got to look at taking care of yourself. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on any one of these topics. I know this is kind of a charged episode, but I do want to tell you the truth on this stuff. And I'll catch you on the next video.